The U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says that Europe should take President Donald Trump seriously on Greenland ahead of high-stakes talks with the island and Denmark next week.
And his comments come as Washington doubles down on its demand to acquire the Arctic territory, possibly by force.
What we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the president.
And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to meet the Danish and Greenland officials next week at their request. Mr. Rubio previously told lawmakers the administration prefers a purchase rather than military force, but maintained that the president retains military options if national security is at stake.
The White House is reportedly considering cash payments to persuade Greenlanders to join the U.S. Reuters, citing sources, said that officials have discussed offering lump sum payments to residents as part of a push for Greenland to break away from Denmark. The amounts under discussion is set to range from $10,000 to $100,000 US per person, though details remain unclear. Greenland and Denmark have repeatedly stressed that the island is not for sale. For more on the story, let's speak now to Heather Conley. She's a non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Thank you so much for joining us, Heather. Firstly, I just want to get your thoughts on the U.S. purchase offer. Is it actually feasible legally and politically?
Well, yes, certainly the United States could offer to purchase Greenland, but that would have to be accepted by the Kingdom of Denmark, the Greenlandic government. And of course, how the Trump administration has gone about this has made both governments very, very reluctant and hesitant to even begin those conversations. They have been clear from the beginning that Greenland is not for sale, that the future and the decisions about the future of Greenland are only for Greenlanders. So it will be very interesting. This very harsh rhetoric has actually worked against the administration, and we'll see how next week's talks go. Hopefully there'll be opportunities for dialogue and compromise. But the administration has been uncompromising in its view that it must have Greenland, and that is actually working against its own stated objectives.
Yeah, speaking of that harsh rhetoric, what do you make of J.D. Vance's warning and criticism of Denmark and Europe not having done a proper job in securing Greenland? I mean, he cited Russian and Chinese activity in the Arctic. Does he have a valid point?
So certainly all Arctic nations, and I would include the United States in this, have been a little behind in understanding how important it will be to increase our security presence and posture as the Arctic transforms. But the Kingdom of Denmark has certainly stepped up to the plate this year, in increasing two substantial Arctic security packages, well above $4 billion of U.S. assistance. We also have other NATO allies significantly stepping up to enhance Arctic security. The Canadian government has put forward an impressive package. Even today, NATO and European Union officials have announced some increases in exercising and security. So I think everyone's gotten the message. But the problem is, the government of Denmark has offered for the United States to increase its military presence in Greenland. We have strong bilateral defense agreements. They've offered, openness to more economic opportunity. But the administration just remains totally focused on this purchase, this acquisition, and that at this point is not acceptable to the Greenlandic and Danish governments.
And how do you respond to growing anger then, and also fear among the ordinary Greenlanders who say that they feel reduced to bargaining chips? They've been hearing threats of annexation, they've been offered money, they've been compared to Venezuela, and they worry that they may be next.
Yes, I mean, and absolutely, the actions that the United States has taken to capture Maduro has certainly, I think, solidified that fear that Greenland could be next. And of course, the White House has kept those options on the table, those military options, even though senior Republican members in Congress have very clearly said this is ridiculous. This is something that the United States would never attack. another NATO member. But while the White House keeps that on the table, this certainly has to be taken and is being taken very seriously by Danish and Greenlandic officials. I think what's important to again note that while there's a majority of Greenlanders that do seek independence one day from the Kingdom of Denmark, that doesn't mean that they want to then come under the rule of the United States. They seek independence, but they're going to have to find ways to increase their economic opportunity. The fact that the United States is offering potentially economic incentives, trying to influence Greenlanders to move a certain way, again, works against the dignity of the individual and the self-determination that the Greenlandic people deserve.
Okay, you've mentioned security packages, economic opportunities, Heather, but next week's meeting, I wonder what can Denmark and Greenland offer Washington to ease the pressure, especially when Mr. Trump frames this almost like a real estate deal?
We're right. I mean, I think this is hopefully this dialogue begins to become more constructive because, as I noted, both Copenhagen and Nuuk have opened their arms to increased American security presence, economic presence. This is welcomed, and we have a variety of agreements that can be put into place to strengthen that. But that's not what the administration is interested in. They're interested in acquisition. So it'll be interesting to see if next week is we can put this dialogue in a more constructive path where the United States does achieve its objectives, more security, more economic opportunity. But if there is, this continued focus on purchase and using many instruments of American power to try to get to that purchase and influence, I think we're headed for, an increased downward spiral of crisis between the United States, the Danish government, and the EU as well as NATO.
And finally, very quickly, Heather, how likely, I should say, could America's rhetoric in the Arctic invite Russia and China to test similar boundaries?
Well, I think this is really the concern that many are expressing is in the White House's view of the Monroe Doctrine, this creation of spheres of influence where the United States can seize and take control of area in its sphere of influence, that China will be given that same idea as well as Russia. I mean, this again is not stabilizing. You need an international order that it focuses on sovereignty and territorial integrity. And so Greenland just puts that into question. The United States is eroding the international system. Right now, we're hoping that we can put this conversation into a more constructive way where the United States can increase its own security and prosperity in partnership with its allies, not in confrontation with them. And we'll see if Secretary Rubio is able to do that, or the voices in the White House that are speaking about military options, and we will have it because it's ours and we want it, if that is the dominant conversation as we move forward.
Indeed, Heather, thank you so much for your insight this morning. Heather Conley, non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute.